How's it going? My name is Jefferson Clark. I'm running for mayor here in Galveston, Texas, 2026 as a Democrat. Just coming to you here from Galveston with some updates, the news, and looking forward to the run for mayor here in Galveston. So this first thing is one of the things I'm really proud of is the activity by the Democrats on this gerrymandering thing. It's a big deal. One of the things that this administration is attempting to do is stack the deck in their favor by redistricting, maps to where it would more favorably enhance the GOP's advantage by, I think, about 5 seats. And to see the Democrats' resistance to that and their activism to combat that, whether it's victorious or not, is a win. A lot of times that's what people are looking for. They're just looking for some resistance, some fight, a show of sign of life. And the fact that they're doing that is huge. So a huge thanks to every single Democrat that has participated and assisted with alerting the public of what the administration is attempting to do, using their platforms and their influence to make voters aware of what this administration is attempting to do, and doing everything they can to stop that. And much thanks and appreciation should go out to every single Democrat that's a part of that. Especially here in Texas, where I'm at, and I'm very, 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 very grateful. And however small of a victory it might be, it's still a victory, in my opinion. You got to start somewhere, and to me, it's an excellent start, or it's an excellent show of sign of life and fight in the party that people seem to believe is missing or is gone. And this is one of the examples that we can point to say, we understand we are at a disadvantage. Numbers and seats and votes, it may not necessarily have the leverage to get what we want. The point is, we're showing life, showing fight that we haven't showed in the past. And we're working together and not fighting amongst one another, which is another key. So awesome, excellent job, much appreciated, and couldn't be more thankful of everybody that's assisted with that, because that is a huge deal. We don't, redrawing maps in every state. I mean, that is not a productive use of time to advance the interests of the people. And resorting to these type of gamesmanship rule changes is it cheats the American public, in my opinion. So excellent job from the Democrats. Tariffs, one of the things I was sitting there thinking, we want to get rid of all these tariffs. We want to remove every single tariff that's out there. If anybody has any ideas of what we could trade, or what would be a good counteroffer to Trump to get him to reduce those tariffs, would be much appreciated, right? Something we can offer him as, an incentive for him, for him to lower the tariffs and remove them, and keep him from redistricting Texas. Boeing strike. Notice there was a strike there at Boeing. I think 3,000 employees are going to go on strike. That's an important step right there. We need to be behind all of those workers getting better pay and benefits for the work that they're doing, and I do think it's very necessary. Anytime we are actively going against, wealthy shareholders, we always want to side with the worker. And in this case, I think it's an excellent idea. And like I said, I'm in full support of all of the workers at Boeing. Which kind of leads me to think, I'm surprised that more tech companies don't have some of these unions. And I think it might be something to look into. When you see people with $300 billion worth of assets, you're thinking, really that should be distributed amongst the workers a lot more, or at least the population a little bit better. And unions are a way to do that. So just something to think about. Unions are very, very effective and are a big reason why we have some of the employment laws that we have, and why employment conditions have improved. But they can be improved more, and should be, in my opinion. Let's see here. NPR, they remove funding for NPR and PBS, which is not good. Their argument for doing that was because of the bias. And so their solution was basically to kill all the funding to it, which I think is a very short-sighted approach. A lot of times, when you don't have a lot of money, people rely on those sources for news and entertainment. I know I did when I was a kid. We didn't have cable TV. I didn't get cable TV until I was in college. So when you see things like that get canceled or canceled basically, because of a political perspective, I would think a better solution would have been to just ensure that 50% of the representation on the show presented the opposing viewpoints versus just completely killing the programs. But that's what this administration did. They canceled the program because of their political bias, which I think they're basically repeating the same mistakes that maybe the left had done in the past, when a better response would have been, don't kill all the funding, just make sure that representation is a little bit more balanced to their liking. But they didn't do that. Again, that's a loss on this GOP, and why I think the Democrats stand have a good chance of winning a lot of seats back. Let's see here. There's a shortage of public defenders. That's a big deal. Given 330 million people, we're going to have several people in and out of the justice system. And the fact that we don't have a means to help those defend themselves is a very bad thing. Going through the legal system is a very, very expensive process. I've been through it. And I think they make it expensive so that you try to avoid it. And so in those cases where people don't even have the money to afford an attorney, we should be able to provide one. And the fact that we don't have one, or are having a shortage, is a big issue, because then you're going to end up with people in prison that shouldn't be there, people with stuff on their record that they shouldn't have. They don't have the adequate protections from the government, and those public defenders do that job. And the fact that we have a shortage means the government is getting too strong. This government is too strong, and they're using the power to really just crush people like this. Let's see here. In the AP, they said, most people consider the party weak and ineffective. Well, there's a good reason for that. There is a amalgam of sorts of factors that kind of brought about what we have now. But the good news is that it can only get better, much better, and I believe that it will. And I believe that we're on the path to getting better, getting healthy. America needs two parties. It has to have two balanced parties of equal weight. And having it slanted so far to the right like it is right now, you're seeing all kinds of changes that in a balanced government or environment you would never see. And so that's another reason why I'm in the Democrats' camp, is because they are so at a disadvantage. It is my nature to always go to the underdog or the one that's struggling and try to help lift them up. I did that for President Trump when he was when he was a castaway. I went and listened to him I just wanted to see what he had to say. So I went and listened, even when nobody else would give him the time of day. And so, like I did for President Trump, I'm doing now for the Democrats, and I'm helping them lift up out of the rut that they're in, to help America, in order for America to thrive, they really need these they really need these both parties to be strong and equally matched, um, to have the best outcomes for the people that it governs. Right now, it's too far to the right, in my opinion. Um, I noticed that they're looking into an ex-prosecutor, Jack Smith. Again, I'm 100% against prosecuting or penalizing prior administration staff, especially if they were in power and then they lost power. This prosecuting political adversaries or enemies is a loser strategy and should be avoided at all costs. Now, disclosing or shedding light on what you see as a ill or as a wrong, I would support that. But going through the process of throwing them in jail, well, you're just repeating the same thing they did to you, and that makes you worse. It makes you the same, and that's what we're not going for. So my advice to President Trump is, okay, you see a wrong, right? If you see a wrong, shed light on it. Make sure the public is aware of it, and let it be. Do not prosecute or throw any one of those people in jail, because then you look no better than the people that were doing it to you. So if you want to win, you're not going to penalize these people. All you're going to do is disclose information that you feel is wrong, point it out, and what the penalty could be, but you're not going to do that. That's how you should address that. That's at least how I would do it. And that way, when people are in office, they don't ever have to feel worried that, being in, the risk of being in public office comes with like a jail risk. And that you don't want that. You want the best and brightest to want to run for office for the benefit of some kind of leniency for serving it. But if that serving it includes going to jail, nobody good is going to be wanting to serve that government. And then you're going to end up with nothing but crooks. And that's not what we want. So disclose the information, point out the wrongs, point out what could happen, but don't penalize and prosecute and all that nonsense. That's the last thing I would do. Because all you're going to do, you're just going to continue to make this damn thing worse. And it shouldn't be. Let's see here. The Pope, the possibility of a better world, 100% on board with that. The idea, in my opinion, in my belief, unconditional love should be what we strive for. That is the number one thing. Love, unconditional love, without any kind of expectation from the other person. That's what we should be striving for. Especially family, between families. Unconditional love, loving them as they are. And when we get to that idea, away from this worship of material possession, America will heal itself. Right now, worshiping material possession over that unconditional love, or doing what's right, honesty, integrity, honor, courage, all of those kind of type things. Well, when your society no longer values those, but just the material possession, all hell breaks loose. And it's kind of like what's happened here. We put way too much value on material possession and not enough on honesty, integrity, honor, courage, resilience, strength, all of the things that you can't necessarily place a value on. And so that's my thought on that, of a better world. And then finally, okay, so I'm thinking about this. I look at myself as just, I'm part of the, running for mayor as a Democrat, I'm just part of the party, right? But I also look at, future leaders of the party, like Buttigieg, I always felt was a really good one. Newsom, I think, is a really good one. Pritzker is a great one. We have some really great talent on the Democratic side. Bashir is another one. And, the future of the party, you're looking at, who's going to kind of be the rising stars, or who's going to be the next president type. And I'd like to say, hey, I might run if depending on how my mayoralship run goes. But I don't know, I don't look at it like, to me, I don't need to win a position or office to be successful in helping the Democratic Party. A victory for me is seeing that the party is equally matched to the Republicans. When it reaches 50-50, where it is a tie almost, to me, that is a victory. That's what I consider a victory. And if it comes with, win an office or maybe a cabinet post one day, terrific. But number one is I'm looking for those party leaders that we're going to be able to build around and have for the future. Kind of like our pipeline of talent. And I always look to, right now, Yasmin Crockett from Texas. What I love about her, I love that she is incredibly smart. She is obviously beautiful. And she's got an attitude. And you kind of need all three of those. Not necessarily the beautiful part, but the, how you carry yourself. And when you're in a professional setting and you have those attributes, it really works in your favor, and it speaks to a broad swath of people, and that's what we need as the Democrats. And so I look at her, I look at AOC, I look at Hakeem Jeffries, I look at Booker. Those are really, really great leaders of the party that have a great chance of going even higher. And my hope is that they do, and I hope that I get to help them do that. And that I get to be a part of it. Whether or not I'm the one that's, that rises to anything, I'm going to try, but that's not my end goal. My end goal is just to see the party do well and help us kind of win, get back to a point where we are a respectable representative party, and we are 50-50 in match with the Republicans. And I am going to work my tail off to win mayor and maybe go beyond that. But that is not my sole focus. My sole focus right now is helping the leaders of the party build the party back to the state that they would like to see it. And for the better of the country, it really needs it. You can't just have a one party rule like what we have right now. We really need two, we need a strong Democrat and a strong Republican Party. And we got our work cut out for us. But I think, the activism that's happening today regarding the gerrymandering from the entire party working together like that, huge. That is a big, big show of strength. Even if we don't come out with a victory, it's a sign of life. It is a sign of fight. And it is a sign of things to come, in my opinion. Sometimes, that's all people need to see out of you is that you got some fight. You got some fight, and you're going to be, you have a future ahead of you. But if you lay over and you roll over and let them run all over you, well, who's going to want to be a part of that party? Nobody. So, like I said, that activism was huge. I love it. We're going to do everything we can to keep them from redistricting Texas. And need some ideas in terms of like what can we do regarding these tariffs? Like how can we, what can we negotiate with President Trump on a global item that would entice him to remove the tariffs and not redistrict Texas or something to that effect. It could be anything, but it would be helpful to have some of those ideas and a way to kind of value and compare what they're offering to what we're going to offer them in return. So with that, again, my name is Jefferson Clark, Mayor of Galveston, 2026, and look forward to just bringing y'all along with me. Great job today. Love ya.